space for fun. There's room for everyone. Don't be an alien. Choose Planet Pizza. Space for Planet Pizza.
Premier Movement. Move better, perform better, live better. Premier Movement is personal training redefined. Using group classes that demand accountability, action, and results. Visit PremierMovementND.com to learn how you can change your life today. While you're there, you can also see how to sign up for your first workout for free. PremierMovementND.com.
Throughout the areas we serve, First International Bank and Trust employees are actively involved in helping our customers and communities grow. This is Kevin Vigestad from First International Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Whether it's coaching a Little League team, leading through involvement with nonprofit organizations, or a proud Beaver booster, know that all of us at First International Bank and Trust are committed to giving back to the places where we live and work.
Pro Style Production Live Events specializes in making your event fun with a professional touch, whether it's a wedding, reunion, or party. Pro Style Productions event management takes the stress out of your event so you can sit back and enjoy. Contact Ben Barr from Pro Style Production today to discuss your event or visit ProStyleProduction.com. Pro Style Production Live Events. Let the pros handle it.
This presentation on the Pro Style Production Broadcast Network is brought to you by IMM, Monad's finest collision center, Premier Chiropractic, Ralph's Plumbing and Heating, Qdoba Mexican Grill, Shields, Buffalo Wild Wings, Vibeto Orthodontics, Duffy's Hockey and Sports, Bremer Bank, the Modern Hockey Boosters, the UPS Store, Planet Pizza, United Agronomy, Homesteaders, First Western Bank and Trust, Granite Springs, and First International Bank.
After 16 regular season games in the WDA, the champions have been crowned. The tournament seating has been placed, and we are set for the WDA tournament 2019-2020 in Bismarck at the VFW Sports Center, starting Thursday, heading to Friday, then Saturday to see what four teams out of the West region will go to the North Dakota High School Hockey Tournament for 2020. Hello, and thanks for joining us here on the Pro Style Production Network, presented tonight by Planet Pizza and our friends at 701 Realty. This is the PSP Network WDA preview show alongside of the legend himself, Mr. Larry McFall. I'm Nick Holberg. Larry, this is what should be one of the best WDA tournaments in recent memory, and if not, if all time, heading into the tournament, knowing how much parity is in the West region. What can you say about the WDA tournament right around the corner? We know that we're in store for a good one.
Yeah, this year it's a couple of teams have came back down to earth, so to speak, and made it a very, very close battle there, especially in those mid-seeds. And for the Minot High Magicians, if you're a huge fan of them, to be able to go through the whole season sweeping everybody in the West except for Jamestown, who they split with, that's another key story in itself. And you put that all together, and you've got a very, very interesting and wide open West Region tournament.
Well, the key stories in my mind after the season comes to a close, the regular season coming to a close, you mentioned Minot High. They win their crown, the first crown in a handful of years here after it's been Century and Bismarck High that win the regular season crown over and over and over again. It seems like a broken record. Minot High gets in there for the first time since 2017 with a 13-1 mark. The other storylines to me that are pretty big, how about Leif Mattsson's team, the Mandam Braves? They come in as the number 3 seed in the West region. Ian Amsbaugh from Botno, this is a key story storyline. He's the number 1 point leader in all of North Dakota with 61. The 8 seed Botno Braves can put up some shocking numbers once in a while. They might be a team not to be overlooked and an absolute sleeper with the best player in all of North Dakota. And then how about Bismarck High? They're riding into the tournament on a 7-game losing streak. Last year's regular season champions come in to the tournament on a 7-game skid. Those are my key storylines. Is there one of those in your mind that steps out as the biggest storyline or the most shocking storyline of all?
Well, I had Minot sweeping, and I already talked about it a little bit. At Minot High sweeping everybody in the West except Jamestown. That hasn't happened in a long, long time for the Magicians to be set up as well as they are right now. I also had the fall of Bismarck High School. And you can't put it all on the new coach and the players. Some of it has to go to them. But you and I talked about it earlier this year, to talk about it again, is they really missed Mike Peluso, the leadership of a former National Hockey League player who got them to the finals, I believe, 2 of the last 3 years, winning 1 title. And to not have him around, it looks like it was just devastating to Bismarck High. Now, they could prove me wrong, and they could have a great tournament and come on out and win the West again, as far as we know. But that was a big storyline, how Bismarck has fallen, like you said, the big losing streak at the end of the year. And I think it all correlates to Mike Peluso and his whole staff resigning after the state tournament last year.
Yeah, you certainly have a topic of conversation there that is one across the hockey boards across North Dakota that is one that's at the forefront. I mean, you've got a guy that, with what he did with the West region for all those years, in his 11, I believe it was, years at Bismarck High, the way that the West region elevated its game to be able to compete with the East, you saw that with a state championship from Bismarck High, their first ever. Minot High wins their second in that same amount of time. And you're looking at teams, more importantly, from the West region that all of a sudden were able to compete at the state high school hockey tournament, get into that TV round, and end up in some games where a third-place trophy was won, a second place was up for grabs, some things like that. So I think that you make a really good point there.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see if they can put it together under the new head coach to return to the dominance that they have had in that tournament the last several years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the WDA tournament starting on Thursday. This is the preview show for the WDA tournament here on the Pro Style Production Network. It's brought to you today by 701 Realty. Let 701 Realty's Andrew and McKenna Goodmanson make your experience a positive one. Visit them online today at 701realty.com. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the standings, where the teams finished inside of WDA play. We'll also take a look out east. We'll talk about the top players in all of North Dakota. We'll also speak of who maybe might win that Senior Gatorade Player of the Year here for 2019-2020. We'll do all that when we return to the PSP Network WDA Hockey Preview Show here on the Pro Style Production Network.
Systems go for lunch when supper time's a crunch. T-minus now, it's time for Planet Pizza. With lots of space for fun, there's room for everyone. Don't be an alien to Planet Pizza. Space for fun. Planet Pizza.
They have tonight's call and every Nickelback album. Back to the voices of Magi Hockey. Here's Nick Holberg and Larry McFall.
Well, the WDA tournament, always our favorite time of the year, getting geared up. The top 4 teams out of the West will make their way to the State High School Hockey Tournament, which is next week in Fargo at the Shields Arena. Nick Holberg alongside of Larry McFall for the PSP Network WDA Preview Show. Larry, when you look at the standings for 2019-2020, you see Minot High at top, followed by Bismarck Century. Minot High went 13-1. The Patriots went 12-2, but after that, Bismarck High, Mandan, Jamestown, Dickinson, Williston, and Botno, the teams that are all in the mix here heading into the WDA tournament, they're not separated by many wins and losses. There's a lot of parity here in 2019-2020, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, it's just hard for me to look at Bismarck High going 6-7 in the West, and 7-13 overall. Just haven't seen that for a long time. They're in that tie with Mandan at 27 points apiece. Jamestown was 8-8, Dickinson 7-9, Williston 6-10, and Bottineau Rugby at 4-9. Also Mandan at 9-7. So Mandan was up a little bit from last year. The other teams under 500, struggling, just trying to get their heads above water. But it's still close between those teams. You could take Williston, Dickinson, and you never know who's going to win that battle when those two teams play each other. Of course, we had Hayes and Beulah as well, not playing a full varsity schedule, but they ended up 0-12 for the year and 2-18 overall. So Hayes and Beulah still has some work to do, but it's just very unusual to see Minot High over Bismarck Century and Bismarck High in these standings. For Minot High Magician fans, we've all thought it's been a long time, and it looks nice seeing that Minot up on top, but it's even more strange to me seeing Century and Bismarck High not on top. So now the question is, can Minot High take what has been built here and what's down on paper and continue to cruise in the West region? Or is it going to be Bismarck and Century and Bismarck High all of a sudden showing up here, so to speak, at the end of the year and shutting the Magicians down again? So as you had said earlier, parity is the huge word in the West region this year. And before, in past years, we used to hope that everybody could beat everybody, but it seemed like it didn't ever happen. This year, everybody can beat anybody. It's that tight.
Well, when you take a look out east as well, it's kind of the same song and dance out there. Central finished number 1 in the east. Fargo Shanley was number 2. They were separated just by 2 wins. Central had 2 more than South Shanley. Davies had 12 wins on the year as well. That was 2 less than Grand Forks Central. 11 wins on the year for Grand Forks Red River compared to Central's 14 that they had. Those are the top 4 teams out east. Central, Fargo, South Shanley, then Davies, then Red River. West Fargo came in at number 5, Fargo North number 6, Grafton number 7, 8 was West Fargo. Cheyenne, Devils Lake kind of didn't have the year that they wanted to, 1-14 overall. They finished 9th, and Mayville Portland didn't play for points this year. So you look at the standings out east, and there is parity across the board. My big question for you is there's going to be 4 teams that get out of the WDA hockey tournament and head to Fargo to play at the Shields Arena for the North Dakota State High School Hockey Tournament. Do any of those teams out west have a chance to beat any of those top 4 out east? It almost, some people might laugh and say, you got to be kidding me, is that a real question? But in my mind, it is a very real question. Does anyone out west have a chance to make it to the big dance in Fargo this year and make some noise over there?
Well, this year, I would have to say, I don't want to sound like a homer, but I think Minot High is the only team that has a chance. Unless Bismarck Century and Troy Olson, it's tournament time. We all know about Troy Olson at tournament time. It seems like that coaching staff there gets that group of young men more motivated and just aggressive as heck when it gets to this time of the year. So if they can build it up one notch from where they were, I think you can also say Century possibly. But I really think you have to win the West region, which I think Minot's going to do. You got to be on top to get the number 4 team from out east, and I think that can be a victory, that 1 west against 4 from the east. The other ones, it's possible, but I wouldn't bet my Corvette on it or anything. I just don't see that. But I think Minot High has a chance to possibly get to the semifinals by knocking off one of those, the 4th place team.
By the way, NorthDakotaHighSchoolHockey.com is the official home for North Dakota high school hockey. The standings, the results, the stat leaders, everything high school hockey across the board. Visit NDHighSchoolHockey.com. That's NDHighSchoolHockey.com. If you've never been there and you're a fan of the sport, you'll absolutely love NorthDakotaHighSchoolHockey.com. These stats and numbers are provided by NorthDakotaHighSchoolHockey.com as we take a look now at the 2019-2020 top scorers in all of North Dakota. And there's a player from the West region Region that's on top of that list, it's Ian Amsbaugh from Bottineau Rugby. He leads the league with 29 goals on the year, 61 points for him. That means he had 32 assists on the season. Touch on this player from Bottineau, and why is it that Ian Amsbaugh is at the top of this list here again this year, and why is it that there's a player from Bottineau Rugby that is at the top of that list? It just seems like once every 2-3 years, we've got somebody from the Lumberdome that can find a way to fly and find a way to score more points than anybody else in North Dakota.
Well, I think one thing that helps him definitely is the home rink up there in Bottineau, and by no way am I trying to criticize the community arena, but it's a unique rink that's not as long as a regulation rink. It's about 7 feet narrower than a regulation rink. One of the ends has glass, the other has kind of like a styrofoam type backing to it instead of glass. So if you hit that with a puck above the net, the bounces aren't the same on that end as everybody else is used to at the rinks they play. So I do think that makes a big difference. It's also very, very cold in there, and nowadays no one's used to that. Maybe Williston. Williston's been known to be a little chilly in the Agra arena there as well, but so I think Bottineau has a lot of things going for it when they play home games. Also, the criticism that you're going to hear coming from the East is some of the teams that the Bottineau Braves played for him to roll up those goals in. I don't know if it's so much this year or not, but in years past they played a lot of games against AAA midget teams up in Canada, and sometimes you can really light it up against some of those teams. So I guess I don't know if they did that much this year, but those are the two things that I think make it a little bit different. A lot of people will say that they don't play teams that are that tough, and that's always a shame, because I know that's what the East teams think most of the time when somebody from around here is up that high in goal scoring. They got to realize this kid's a stud. He is unbelievable. His presence on the ice and knowing where to go to find that open area to get open, soft hands. He can receive almost any kind of pass you throw at him, and it's a shame for some people to think, well, geez, he's just scoring a lot because they're playing easy teams up in Canada. So that's the unfortunate part of the whole thing. Still, I don't think we've sold our talent level to the East very well yet. We all know every year, though, it's getting closer. So definitely he is an unbelievable hockey player.
Well, he comes from a long tradition of guys that have been in the Mr. Hockey Talks. You think about guys like Eric Herbel and Logan Milliken, Lon G, Harrison Aid, those guys that down the list, Noah Grant. I mean, there's a handful of those players up there that each and every year there's at least one stud, as it seems. And this year it's a Bottineau team. We'll talk about their matchup with Minot High in the first round coming up. But Amsbaugh is a player that you need to watch for because he is a game changer. He's a player that can help Bottineau get back to the state tournament for the 16th time in school history if they have a chance. It might be this year.
I think he had an older brother that played a
Luke
few years
Amsbaugh.
back. And I played way back in the 70s against a netminder named Mark Amsbaugh. And so I don't know if Mark turned out to be an uncle or a father or what the deal might be. But as you said, that name and that family has been around hockey up there for a long time.
Drew Sandy and Alex Sem from Fargo South Shanley, they rank 2 and 3 in the state of North Dakota in scoring. Sandy's got 57 points, 53 for Semth. Braden Panzer from Grand Forks Central, the top team out east, has 46 points. The junior scored 21 times here in his junior campaign. The next player from the West region that you'll see on this list in the top 5 is Joey Pavic from Dickinson. 45 points for Pavic this year. He's played in 18 games, 23 goals, 22 assists for him. He is a special player. Keep your eyes out for him at the WDA tournament. Pavic for Dickinson is a player that looks to help them get back to the state tournament. William Lawson Body from Grand Forks Central's got 44 points. Spicer from Central has 44. The next in line from the West region, the third guy in the top 10 in scoring from the West with 44 points is Nolan Nenau from Jamestown. Then you've got Joey Kennelly from Central, followed by Jace Thompson from Jamestown. They round out the top 10 in scoring in North Dakota. Only 4 on the WDA side of things in the top 10 in scoring come from the western side of the state. Inside of the top 10 in scoring for the West, if we just break down the West side, you've got Amsbot number 1, Joey Pavick at number 2, Nenow from Jamestown at number 3, Jace Thompson from Jamestown at 4, Joey Heinert from Bismarck High. This is a player that's battled some injuries here in his high school career, but Heinert's a game changer for the Demons. You have to keep an eye on him. He's number 5 in the West with 33 points. He's tied with Jaron Hughlin from Dickinson and Hunter Nelson from Jamestown, all with 33 points. Colton Schulte from Bismarck Century, the junior forward's got 30 points. Century's top point producer ranks number 8 in the West at scoring. Landon Rosendahl from Botno Rugby's number 9 with 29 points. Minot High cracks the top 10 with a player from the West region in scoring, and that's Jaden Luck. He's only a sophomore, 15 goals, 14 assists, 29 points for him. And then rounding out the top 25 in all of North Dakota is Carter Berger from Mandan with 28 points, coming from the Mandan Braves and Leif Madsen's team, the number 3 team out west. Those numbers shock you at all, Larry, knowing that inside of the top 10 of North Dakota, there's only 4 players from the West region that crack that top 10?
I don't know. I mean, some years the West has a lot of players up here on this list, and some years they don't. So I guess it just comes and goes. That doesn't really shock me too much. I just did want to comment, though, on that Joseph Heinert from Bismarck High. We didn't get a chance to see him play when we went down to Bismarck. He was out that night, and he's got 33 points just in 16 games. He has missed 6 games this year, so just kind of imagine how much higher he could be up on that list if he would have skated out 6 more times. So it'll be interesting to see if he can add a spark for Bismarck High. I was anxious to watch him play. It's kind of unfortunate he wasn't in the lineup that night, but he is a guy that might maybe be able to make a big difference for his team if he's healthy and he can go out there and play every day.
When we talk about the Senior Gatorade Athlete of the Year, the top producer, top player, doesn't matter if it's a goaltender, point producer, defenseman, whatever it may be, the top player in the West region that is a senior in Western North Dakota, in my mind, you're looking at players like Joey Pavick from Dickinson. You got to have Heinert in that conversation from Bismarck High. Connor Hansen, the D-man from Bismarck Century, is the real deal. And then Riley Gerhardt, the goaltender from Jamestown. Those would be the ones that come to my mind. In your mind, is there somebody that I'm missing off that list that is in that conversation, or is that a pretty good crop, you think, right there to choose from?
No, that's a pretty good group to choose from. I know we saw the netminder play here in Minot that beat the Magicians there early in the season. It was the only team from the West region that Minot High didn't sweep. And I mean, I think he was standing on his heads doing push-ups that day, if I can remember right. I mean, he was all over the place. I was checking to see if it was Dominique Hasek in the locker room to see if they brought in a ringer. The kid's good.
That's Riley Gerhardt that you're speaking of, 3.85 goals against average with a 90% save percentage in 19 games played his senior year for Jamestown. And this is an 8-8 hockey team that when you look at that, you know that he kind of is the real deal. He has to be in the conversation, in my mind. The Pavick kid from Dickinson has to be there, and so does Heinert. And then you think about Connor Hansen, what he did as a defenseman last year for Bismarck Century, what he's done again for Century here his senior year. He's been a 3-year starter for Bismarck Century on the back end. Doesn't have a whole lot of flashy points, but Hansen's a player that on both ends of the ice gets his job done there. And again, as we know, the goaltender, though, however, can be your most important player through the stretch and down the road as we get into tournament time. We'll talk about all those goaltender matchups coming up in just a moment. When we come back, we'll talk about the brackets and who's going to play who in the East and West as we get into region tournament time, getting geared up for the state tournament in Fargo 1 week from now. This is the Pro Style Production Network preview show for the WDA hockey tournament. More to come when we return.
Time's a crunch. T-minus now, it's time for Planet Pizza. With lots of space for fun, there's room for everyone. Don't be an alien to Planet Pizza. Space for fun. Planet Pizza. I love space. Pizza.
Perform better, live better. Premier Movement is personal training redefined. Using group classes that demand accountability, action, and results. Visit PremierMovementND.com to learn how you can change your life today. While you're there, you can also see how to sign up for your first workout for free. PremierMovementND.com.
Throughout the areas we serve, First International Bank and Trust employees are actively involved in helping our customers and communities grow. This is Kevin Vigestad from First International Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Whether it's coaching a Little League team, leading through involvement with nonprofit organizations, or a proud Beaver booster, know that all of us at First International Bank and Trust are committed to giving back to the places where we live and work.
Pro Style Production Live Events specializes in making your event fun with a professional touch, whether it's a wedding, reunion, or party. Pro Style Productions event management takes the stress out of your event so you can sit back and enjoy. Contact Ben Barr from Pro Style Production today to discuss your event or visit ProStyleProduction.com. Pro Style Production Live Events. Let the pros handle it.
WDA Tournament Preview Show presented by Planet Pizza. 701 Realty, Planet Pizza. The area's ultimate party location. School parties, team parties, birthday parties, and so much more. They truly are out of this world. Best pizza in the Magic City for over 20 years. Give them a call at 701-852-1700. And don't forget, if you're buying or selling a home, let 701 Realty's Andrew and McKenna Goodmanson make your experience a positive one. Give them a call today, or visit them online at 701realty.com. It's Nick Holberg alongside of Larry McFall, the 45-year veteran of high school hockey in North Dakota. He was on the first ever Mountain High Magicians team back 45 years ago. He's the color analyst on the PSP network for high school hockey. Nick Holberg here with you as well today. Larry, it's time to talk about the brackets and the tournaments and what we have lined up for this week ahead at the WDA and East Region tournaments. If you want to just touch on the east side of the state real quick, can you give us a quick rundown of what's happening over east?
Yeah, the East Region runs their tournament a little bit differently. They give the best teams with the best records one more home game. They play their first round of the region, and they feel, and when I talked to Bob Gillen about this, he said the East feels that you must earn something from having a better record during the year, so they give them a home game to play. So in essence, it only cuts their tournament down to a 2-day tournament. It also saves money for, I guess, everybody on motels and everything too. I think it kind of takes away from the tournament atmosphere, but that's how they've been playing it out. They had two play-in games. Grafton defeated Mayville Portland 4-2, and Devils Lake took care of West Fargo Cheyenne 6-4. So now they come into the tournament action, and here are the games that were played last night. Grand Forks Central beat Devils Lake 8-0. Grand Forks Red River, a 3-2 win over the West Fargo Packers. They had beat them 5-2 and 2-1 earlier this year. So once again, West Fargo battles Red River all the way, but ends up losing by 1. Fargo South over Grafton 8-2. And Fargo Davies took care of Fargo North 4-1. So Devils Lake will play West Fargo in a loser-out game. Grafton will do the same with South. And then when you look at the championship bracket, it's Red River and Central. Whoever wins is in the championship game and automatically goes to state. And South and Davies do the same. And the losers will go down and take the winners of those loser-out games in to see if they can qualify for the state tournament.
Well, sure appreciate it, Larry. Now let's turn our attention to the WDA. Once again, if you're buying or selling a home, let 701 Realty's Andrew and McKenna Goodmanson make your experience a positive one. Visit them online at 701realty.com. Proud supporter of Mountain High Magicians hockey and WDA tournament coverage that we'll have at the Pro Style Production Network that will start at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning on the PSP Network and at 1390 KRRZ with number 1 Mountain High against number 8 Botno Rugby. This is a rematch of the 6-point game that we had coverage of up at the Lumber Dome that Mountain High barely squeaked out, in my mind, a 3-1 victory up there. That's number 1 against number 8. The second game of the day will be 30 minutes after that first game, let's call it 1:15 in the afternoon, it's Bismarck High at 7-13. They're the number 4 seed. They take on Jamestown at 12-8 overall on the year. Jamestown, the number 5 seed. This one's going to be a good one as well. This one will be worth the price of admission in my mind with Jamestown and Bismarck High. Then you've got Century and Williston in the first portion of the nightcap. 5 o'clock the game time at the VFW Sports Center. Century the number 2 seed, Williston the number 7 seed. Century comes in at 14-7, Williston at 7-13. And then the nightcap, the final game of day number 1. This one's going to be worth the price of admission too, folks. Don't go anywhere for the 7:15 game. Number 3 Mandan at 11-10 takes on number 6 Dickinson at 10-9. Larry, when you look at our matchups, 1 against State Minot versus Bottineau, 4 against 5 Bismarck versus Jamestown, 2 against 7 Century versus Williston, 3 against 6 Mandan and Dickinson. Is there a bad game of the day that you see here? I mean, the only real questionable blowout contest could be the 1 and 2 matchups with Minot High and Bottineau Rugby, Bismarck, Century, and Williston, but you cannot discredit what the Coyotes have done this year and what Bottineau Rugby has done this year. In your mind, what do you see?
Yeah, I don't see any blowouts at all. Minot High, as you said, really battled Bottineau in the game. We were up at the Lumberdome in 3-1. I believe there was an empty net goal in that game too at the end by Plemmel.
Jack Plemmel scored at the end.
I think so. Actually, 2-1 with a minute left on the clock. So I don't think anybody should be taking that one for granted. So I think Minot High will win that game, but I think Bottineau is going to keep it close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Bismarck High and Jamestown, I don't see how a 7-13 team ends up seated above a 12-8 team. Just a couple of extra 6-point wins got Bismarck High there, so that's a little unusual. It's too bad. I honestly think Jamestown's the 4th best team in the West. And Century and Williston, look at their scores this year, 5-1, 4-2. Nobody blew anybody away, so that could be a good one as well. And Mandan and Dickinson's going to be a dogfight. They split, and I think this is going to be another real close game. So the answer to your question is there won't be any blowouts. I think they're going to be all good hockey games, very close games, because we have got parity this year in the West region.
Absolutely, we do. When we come back, we're going to talk about that parity and in-depth analysis of each and every matchup coming your way next here on the Pro Style Production Network preview show for the WDA tournament. Hope you're ready for 3 days at the VFW Sports Center that will be in your face, action-packed. It promises to be one of the best tournaments maybe of all time.
Broadcast Network is brought to you by IMM, Minot's finest collision center, Premier Chiropractic, Ralph's Plumbing and Heating, Qdoba Mexican Grill, Shields, Buffalo Wild Wings, Vibeto Orthodontics, Duffy's Hockey and Sports, Bremer Bank, the Minot Hockey Boosters, the UPS Store, Planet Pizza, United Agronomy, Homesteaders, First Western Bank and Trust, Granite Springs, and First International Bank.
Make sure to head to the PSP Network. Give us a like on Facebook to stay up to date with all things high school sports across North Dakota with an emphasis on the Frozen Pond. Home for Minot High Magicians hockey coming up on 10 years here. Nick Holberg alongside of Larry McFall for the PSP Network WDA preview show brought to you by 701 Realty and Planet Pizza. Time to turn our attention to the matchups. It's number 1 versus number 8 to lead things off tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. from the VFW Sports Center. We will have radio coverage for you starting at 10:40 a.m. on PSP.network and also at 1390 KRRZ. It's Minot High, the number 1 seed. Number 8 is the Bottineau Braves. Minot High comes in at 13-1. Bottineau's 4-9. Here's the key stats for me. The Magicians are 5-0 in their last 5. Bottineau's 2-3 coming in. Minot High is one of the least penalized teams in the state. They've only taken 78 penalties on the year compared to Bottineau's 90. You look at this matchup, Larry, what hops off the paper to you in this 1 versus 8 matchup tonight? Obviously, the best player in the state of North Dakota, according to points production, is Ian Amsbaugh. He goes against a kid by the name of Jaden Luck, who's in the top 25.
Yeah, Amsbaugh's definitely the top of the list there. 29 goals and 32 assists, just an unbelievable season. You take him out of that lineup, and then Landon Rosendahl and Jaden Luck would be tied in points, and everything else looks pretty even at that stage. But when you got a kid like number 16 that's racking it up like that, that leaps right off the page. Another thing is Tyler Olson. I was so impressed with him up there, the junior goaltender for Bottineau. He wears number 1. He has faced 491 shots this year in 12 games compared to 421 on Sortland in 17 games. So Sortland has got 70 less shots, but he played 5 more games. So that tells me that Tyler Olson is just getting shelled. So I don't go by the goals against average. I don't like goals against averages because it doesn't show you how much a goalie is working. It just shows you how many goals go in per game. Well, the one I look at is the save percentage. How many pucks did you stop out of the shots? He has stopped 89.6 of that 491 shots compared to Trey Sortland, who's having a great year. His save percentage is 88.8. He has stopped 374 of those 421. So Sortland gave up 47, and Olson's given up 51 goals, so the number there looks pretty close, but Tyler Olson has kept them in a lot of hockey games. So the way that I think in this deal is that they've got a goaltender that can steal a game, and they've got the leading highest scorer in the state. So think about that. If those two guys play well, what can happen there?
Absolutely. And that's where, in my mind, you talk about the specialty teams and that penalty stat that I read off. 78 penalties for Modern High on the year, 90 for Bottineau. If you have that extra attacker on the ice, things can change. That's a huge momentum changer. Bottineau needs to stay in. Bottineau needs to keep it clean tomorrow. They need to stay out of the box. They need to stay at 5-on-5 and execute on those opportunities that they have if they want a shot to beat number 1 Modern High. But as we know, tournament time, anything can happen. Is there one X factor besides goaltending and Amsbaugh in your mind tomorrow for the Magicians if they want to come out with a win and move on to the semifinals tomorrow night?
I think at this time of the year, one thing that really, in my mind, still matters, and that was why I'm kind of against the East Region's way that they do their regional tournament now. At this time of the year, I still think fan support and student support is so huge in these games now. So let's say tomorrow in the VFW Sports Center in Bismarck that half the town of Bottineau and Rugby come down there, which we know they're going to. That is loud. It's exciting. They bust kids in. I don't know about the last 2 years in Minot, but the last time we were in Bismarck 3 years ago at the regional, they had a whole student bus load come down there. That means so much to players to step out on the ice and have fans and people cheering for you. And I think Bottineau will have that. Sad to say, Minot High will not. And I hate to say that, but Minot High student section support has not been good through the last few years. Unless you're a parent or a grandparent and you're regular Joe Blow hockey fans like you and me just going down to watch the game, those days seem to be gone. So I hate to say it, but Minot High is going to have a small crowd in my mind that's not going to be making any noise with hardly any students, and the Bottineau section is going to be rocking like it always does, even in the Lumber Dome. So I think that's a huge factor that we're not looking at here in numbers that can make a big difference in that game is when you're out on the ice and you've got backing from a very loud crowd. And I think Bottineau will have that. They always have. So I don't see how that can just stop now in 2020.
You have a prediction for a score. Give us your score overall when it's all said and done.
Oh, boy. I think it's going to be another real tight game. I just don't think Minot High is going to pull away from this one like we thought. I'm going to pick Minot High this time 4-2 and the fourth goal will be an open net goal.
You got Mountain High 4-2. I'm saying Mountain High 4-0. But I think it's tight the entire time. I think it doesn't break open until the third. I really do. I think
Did you say nothing?
nothing. I really did.
You're going to give them nothing.
I'm going to give them nothing. The state's top scorer might get nothing tomorrow against Mountain
He's
High.
going to get nothing, and he's going to like it.
Against Trey Sortland. We'll see what happens. Let's move on to the number 4 versus number 5 matchup. Now, this is the second game of the early camp in the early portion of the tournament. This game will be at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Roughly, it's 30 minutes after the Mountain High game. It's number 4 Bismarck High against number 5 Jamestown. These two teams each won on the road. Bismarck High won 6-2 at Jamestown. Jamestown won at the VFW 7-3. Those are two big scores there, with the winning team putting 7 on the board and 6 on the board. What do you like about this matchup, and where do you think the positives lie for each team, Larry?
Well, what I like about this matchup is Jamestown having 5 players that can just light it up. From Nenau's 44 points down to Corey Nelson's 20 points. They've got a lot of scoring up there from their top line of forwards, and even a sophomore, Hunter Nelson, gets into he's third in the scoring, and Nino's only a freshman. And we've already talked a little bit about Riley Gerhardt in the net. He looked very, very, very good here when Jamestown beat the Magicians, and Minot's only West Region loss. So I think they've got some power, and they've got an excellent goaltender. I just think they're a better hockey team. And when you look at Bismarck, they've got to be stumbling a little bit in their minds, Nick. And I hate to beat this too much, but when you lose Mike Peluso and you go from being a top-tier team for quite a few years to where now you're everyone's talking about how you're falling apart and how you don't have a good team anymore and you've only got a couple of good players, that eventually can, especially for a high school kid, that could really get in their minds and rattle around in there a little bit and make it worse than it even is. So the one thing is they have to just shut off shows like this and just not listen to any of the criticism if you're a Bismarck player. But I think it's a little bit too late. I think losing Peluso and losing this winning tradition, when you and I were down there, the Bismarck fans even looked different. I don't know if you know what I mean, but back when we were there for the last couple years, people kind of look at you like, oh, there's the Minot announcers, and we're going to beat them again tonight. And they usually did, and then we walked out of the rink with shame. This year, it was like we're the entourage. I mean, it just seems so different. The Bismarck fans bumming about how their team's playing and thinking about the same things I just said that went from a high-tier team to what they are now. And you put all that mess together, and I just think no matter how good they might really be, I think this year is not going to be a good finish for Bismarck High.
Well, when you look to last year, Larry, Bismarck High was the number 1 team in the West Region. They won the regular season crown. They did it by going 12-0. They ended up going into the West Region tournament with the number 1 seed. They lost to Bismarck Century in a dogfight right here at the Mesa Arena in that contest. So they were the number 2 seed coming out of the West Region. They win their first game at state. They end up playing Century for third. They get shellacked by Century in that game. They gave up 10 goals in the contest. They come back. They've got Heinert back this year that's got 33 points. They've got Ackerman back in net with 87% as a save percentage and a .415 goals against average. Other than those two players, there aren't a whole lot of guys that jump off the paper for me. And I think the problem in this matchup for Bismarck High is that you're looking at a team from Jamestown that has a little bit more distribution on the score sheet, and they have probably the best goaltender in the West Region, to my mind, in Riley Gerhardt. Gerhardt's a kid that certainly wants to get his Jamestown Blue Jays back to the state tournament. The last time they did was 2018. They didn't go last year, so now here they are with an opportunity to get back there. That would be Jamestown's 20th trip all-time to the state tournament. But you're looking at a team that last year that didn't qualify for the tournament. They finished 4th in the region with a 7-6 mark. They come in this year with an 8-8 record. They're a team that has some guys up top, Nenau and Thompson, that can bury the puck. I think Jamestown's the favorite in this one, even though they're the number 5 seed. Do you have a prediction for us in this tournament game tomorrow, the second of the day?
Yeah, I think Jamestown's going to take it to them. I'm going to say Jamestown 6-2 over Bismarck. And it would be a lot worse if there wouldn't be a guy named Quinn Ackerman in the net. Ackerman has impressed me over the last 2-3 years, and he's going to try to hold the fort down, but I agree with you. Jamestown obviously has more firepower, and they've got one of the best goalies, and Bismarck is, in my opinion, a psychological mess.
Well, they've lost 7 in a row heading into the tournament on their home ice. I'm going to give them a little more credit tomorrow. I'm going to say that Jamestown wins this one in overtime, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think it's going to be another 5-4, 6-5 hockey game. I'm going to say 6-5 Jamestown in overtime tomorrow at 1:15. What do you think? What do you think of that? You like that?
Yeah, that's we'll see. I don't know where you're going to get your goals from, but
we're gonna move on to the nightcap. The 5 o'clock matchup tomorrow inside of the VFW Sports Center. It's the home team Bismarck Century, the Patriots against the number 7 Williston Coyotes. This is a favored match for Bismarck Century that comes in at 12-2. Their only losses on the year are to the Minot High Magicians, who won the West. Tyler Junt's team, the Williston Coyotes, on the other side. This is a team that just hasn't really been blown out by anybody on the year. They come in with a 6-10 mark. They're a team that could be a real sleeper in this tournament, in my mind. For the Coyotes, they haven't made it to the state tournament in a few years. It's been a while for the Williston Coyotes, trying to make their way back for the first time since 2010. This is a team with eight trips to the tournament. On the other side, it's Bismarck Century that since 2006, it's either been Bismarck Century or Bismarck High that's won the West Region Tournament. Century's a team that each and every year, when they get to tournament time, they're going to be good. What do you like in this matchup, and what stands off the paper to you for number 2 Century, number 7 Williston?
What stands out on the paper for me is Troy Olson. The guy is a genius when it comes to playoff hockey, regional, state. He just works with the kids so well. He gets them to buy in on anything that he needs them to buy in on. He changes his game plan against different teams. He's one of the only high school coaches I see that actually makes some changes in between intermissions and in between periods. I just think he's a great leader, and I think this team is bought in, and their 12-2 record proves that they're pretty much just as good as last year. I don't think they've missed a beat. I still think they're one of the best teams. As you said, Minot High beat them twice. But other than that, they swept through everybody as well. So I just think that the Bismarck Century Patriots are still on the same level they were the last couple of years, and I think they should be able to move on. Tyler Junt and Jordan Nelson and the old coach that had him at state the last time, Dustin Bratlin, in 2010. I think Dustin was coaching them at that time. Those guys have done a heck of a job with this hockey team. And as you said, they've not really got worked too bad by anybody. And when they were here playing with Haugenow, played an outstanding game against Minot. And they have built a team from a pretty weak hockey team about 2 years ago. They've built that up now to a respectable team again. And but I don't think that they've got enough for Bismarck Century.
Well, you talk about them last year. They were 2-11. They finished 7th inside of the region. They didn't qualify for state. They're a team that this year is led by Jackson Ekblad. He's got 25 points, 24 for Ashton Collins. Mischke's got 20. Hagenow's the big X factor for me. 89% save percentage and a .317 goals against average. He's only a sophomore, and this is a team that they can shock you. But you come in against a Bismarck Century team that's 8-2 in their last 10. Their receiving votes is one of the top teams in North Dakota right now, outside of Minot High in the West region. Schulte's got 30 points on the year. Hansen on the defensive side has 24, 21 for Samarzik. 18 on the year for Reimer. Not a whole ton of point production up top, but they've got some distribution across the sheet, and they've got two goaltenders that can get it done, Ubel and Stevan. It's a question mark for me which way they're going tomorrow, but Stevan sits on a 1.88 goals against average and a 90% save percentage. Ubel on the other side, an 8.99 save percentage and a 2.4 goals against average. Those are the best numbers in the West region. I've got Century in this one tomorrow, and I think Century might win big, maybe by 4 or 5 in this one. I'm going to say 6-1 Century tomorrow. What's your prediction?
That's the score I was going to pick, so I will I'll one-up you. I'll go 7-2.
You're going to say 7-2?
7-2 for Bismarck Century.
Century. All right. Time to move on to our last game of the day tomorrow, and this one is going to be a good one. It's the Dickinson Midgets and Mandan Braves. It's number 3 Mandan against number 6 Dickinson. First of all, congratulations to Leif Matson and his crew. The 3rd ranking into the West Region Tournament. That's the highest in recent memory for me. That I don't know if Mandan's ever done better than a 3rd place finished in the West Region. Great season for them. They ended up finishing 9-7 overall, 7-9 for the Dickinson Midgets. This is a matchup where Mandan in their last 5 games has gone 4-1. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. They've scored 89 goals on the year. They've given up 74. They go against a Dickinson team that has Joey Pavic that we touched on as one of my picks for the Senior Athlete Player of the Year with 45 points. He's got 23 goals on the year. What stands off the paper for you in this matchup with Dickinson and Mandan 3 versus 6, which is the nightcap tomorrow night, which could possibly be the best game of the tournament?
Yeah, I think you got to be pretty right, except you take Pavic and Huglin out of the equation, and both these rosters and these teams are almost identical for offensive production and for the netminders. You're 88.6 against 87 save percentage. So I think this is the closest matchup of the day. It's supposed to be 4 and 5 is always supposed to be your closest matchup. That's a little skewed by one team getting 6 points in a game that shot them above the other seed. So I think this is the closest game in the tournament. This is going to be a very, very hard one to pick. I think both teams, we've watched them both, and they're both very, very good hockey teams for their level, and they've all got some frontliners that are outstanding. They've got some defensemen that are good. So this matchup, I think, is going to be a real good one. I was looking to see what they did this year against each other. I must have had it on another page here.
Well, Mandan won the first one 7-2. Dickinson won the second one 6-5.
Okay. Yep. So it's awful close. This one is almost a coin flip game for me.
Well, Mandan looking to get back to the state tournament. They went last year. They were the 4th seed out of the West. If you remember what they did with their goaltender, Mattern in the pipes, he shut this team out last year. 1-0 was the win for them to boost them into the state tournament to pick up that 4th seed. They got to the tournament. They didn't have much luck. They had to run into the Buzzsaw Central out of the gate. They were done on day number 2 for the Mandan Braves. But I think Mandan's going to win this game. I've got them in a 3-2 double overtime win over Dickinson here today. If you make a prediction, what do you think that would be, Larry?
You got to start letting me go first.
Oh, is that what you were going to pick? Of course it was.
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think this game will go to overtime. I think these teams are so close that I do think that it will be an overtime. The score, if you have to have one, you stole the higher score. I'll have to take the lower score. It's going to be defensive battle. It's going to be 3-2 for Mandan in overtime.
3-2 for Mandan in overtime. I've got Mandan at 3-2 in double overtime. Let's see how that
double overtime.
Let's see how that one goes tomorrow night. Dickinson trying to get back to the state tournament for their 5th time in program history. The last time they went was 16, 17, and 18. They went 3 years in a row. Can they get back there here in 2019-2020? When we come back to our preview show, Larry and I will make our final predictions and have one more closing thought looking around the tournament and getting geared up for the WDA tournament in Bismarck that takes place starting at 11 a.m. tomorrow. This is the Pro Style Production Network preview show for the WDA tournament.
Broadcast Network is brought to you by IMM, Minot's Finest Collision Center, Premier Chiropractic, Ralph's Plumbing and Heating, Qdoba Mexican Grill, Shields, Buffalo Wild Wings, Vibeto Orthodontics, Duffy's Hockey and Sports, Bremer Bank, the Minot Hockey Boosters, the UPS Store, Planet Pizza, United Agronomy, Homesteaders, First Western Bank and Trust, Granite Springs, and First International Bank. They travel together, but in separate vehicles. The voices of Magi Hockey. Here's Nick Holberg and Larry McFall.
WDA hockey tournament takes place tomorrow in the capital city, Bismarck, North Dakota, tomorrow at 11 a.m. with Minot High taking on Botno. It's number 1 against number 8. We will have radio coverage for you on 1390 KRRZ and at www.psp.network. It's the preview show for the tournament as we get geared up. The preview show brought to you by Planet Pizza, 701-852-1700. Planet Pizza will deliver to you here tonight whenever you hear the show. Planet Pizza, the best in the business. They truly are out of this world. That stuff is fantastic. Also tonight, 701 Realty brings you the preview show as well here. Visit 701realty.com. Andrew McKenna Goodmanson, they do such a fantastic job if you're buying or selling a home. Larry, time for the final segment here as we get geared up to get ready for some WDA tournament hockey tomorrow. We see 1 versus 8 Minot versus Botno Rugby at 11 a.m. again Thursday, followed by number 4 and 5 Bismarck High in Jamestown 30 minutes after. We're calling that roughly 1:15 in the afternoon. Number 2 against number 7 Bismarck Century against Williston at 5 p.m. First game of the nightcap, followed by number 3 Mandan against number 6 Dickinson. That one roughly around 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Do you have a prediction? Who are the 4 teams that you see getting to the tournament, and how do they do it?
Well, the first team I see getting to the state tournament is Minot High. They are going to beat Botno, and then they're going to beat Jamestown, and then they are going to beat Century for the championship. So Minot High will go, Century will get the number 2 seed, and then over on the consolation bracket, I've got Bismarck High then beating Botno. I've got Williston surprising Dickinson. I just think Williston is on the rise, and I think their coaching staff, this is going to be their reward for their season, is to get a big win over Dickinson and get into the next round. So that sets up the state play-in games. Mandan against Bismarck High, and Leif Matson's boys will roll. I think Mandan will beat Bismarck High and get that 3rd or 4th seed going into the state tournament, and then Jamestown will shut down Williston, and it'll be Jamestown and Mandan will be the other 2 teams that go to the state tournament.
So you've got Minot High, Century, Mandan, and Jamestown you think are the 4 that are going to get in?
Yes, that's what. Yep, exactly. Yep.
You know, I think that I think you're right on par. I'm with you all the way, except I do have Dickinson over Jamestown in that play-in game on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. I think Dickinson's going to make their way back to the tournament. I've got Mandan and Dickinson, Minot and Century. How they get there, Mandan and Dickinson are going to go through that loser bracket. On the winner's side of things, Minot and Century, I'm not certain that Minot High is going to go 3-0 in this tournament. I think Century's got the ability to upend Minot High. I think you're looking at a region title game on Saturday afternoon that's going to be really, really interesting and quite the dogfight between Minot and Century. That's how I see that one shaken down. But I, like you, have Minot High, Century, Mandan. Instead of Jamestown going, I've got Dickinson going. Either way, we can all agree that those top 2 teams, there's a bit of a fall off there. But I do have to say this in the same breath. This is a year that Minot High comes in at number 1, Century at number 2. Minot High and Century might be 2 teams that don't even make the state high school hockey tournament because you never know what could happen in Bismarck here this weekend.
We might have just jinxed everybody for all we know.
Well, we sure appreciate your time, Larry. I know you're not going to be at the tournament. You're going to be off at KISS for the 34th time. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2 out of 3 nights, actually. Yeah, seeing KISS at the Alara Center on Saturday night and then seeing them on Monday night in St. Paul. And I do have to stick around here because Friday night we've got Mary College coming in to take on Minot State. That should be a great hockey game. That's a home and away, so I have to work that one on Friday, but I will be tuned in.
Well, I sure appreciate your time today. The next time we'll have you on the airs for the state tournament preview show, which we'll have right here on the Pro Style Production Network as well. Get geared up and ready. Follow us on Facebook to stay tuned with the broadcast schedule and the tournament updates. Also visit NorthDakotaHighSchoolHockey.com to stay up to date. It's going to be a wild tournament. 2019-2020 promises to be just that. Monmouth High, the number 1 seed. They get things started tomorrow with Bottineau, the number 8 seed. 10:40 a.m. for the pregame show, brought to you by Planet Pizza at psp.network. We thank you for joining us. Special thanks again to 701 Realty and Planet Pizza for bringing you this preview show. For Mr. Larry McFall, I'm Nick Kohlberg signing off. We'll see you tomorrow at the VFW in Bismarck for WDA Tournament Hockey. Until then, good night and God bless.